This is the relocated site of the Cameron Depot. In 1980, it was moved on the back of a truck right up this street and brought in here and set by Tupi and Isabel McKeith and Thomas to save it. And this is the most significant piece of history of Cameron that still stands, because Moore County's very first train came to Cameron, North Carolina, the present Moore County, and it had a monopoly and pulled all of the trade from all over the county, shipped out here, and all of the general stores picked up their merchandise that came from up north. They would go make buying trips up to Baltimore, Maryland, and the goods would be shipped to this depot and then taken to the stores in Carthage and Carter's Mill, that's now Robbins, and every part of what we know as Moore County came in here by wagon and loaded their supplies and took it back to their stores. Then we have the Tyson and Jones Buggy Factory, that from 1875 till about 1888, when they got their own railroad, they shipped all of their wagons and surreys and buggies and all of that kind of thing out of this depot right here. So Cameron has never geographically been a big town, but its influence and its monopoly of current Moore County, you cannot tell the story of Moore County, especially from 1875 forward, and leave Cameron out. And we are lucky that even the building right behind you there is the old Greenwood Inn. I know that as the Muse Brothers, and before that the German Hotel, and it's the last of the three hotels that is still standing. It was built in 1878 by a man named Colonel John B. Mazemore, and a man that had a saloon named Og Myers. He was a German. He wanted to have make benefit of this booming town of Cameron, so he built this hotel here, and he put a bar room in the basement. And there was a sign for many years that said, "Square up what you owe before you leave." And if you were too intoxicated to read that sign, they would cut you off and not allow you to have any more whiskey. But Cameron was, you can't underestimate that side either. We had 3 hotels and 7 saloons. And the men around this area, they worked hard in tar, timber, and turpentine, and they played hard when they came into this town. And there were girly shows in these hotels and in the saloons. Most of the saloons were in the cellar. Cameron had cold beer in 1881, and they used dry ice, and they used these wooden what we would call in later years, it's like the refrigerator and the ice box for electricity. They had another version of that using dry ice. And all of these hotels, 3 of them had cellars in them, and many of these buildings had full basements. That's the other thing. So many times when you look at these buildings, all of them would have been 2-story buildings with full basements, and a lot of them had the old-timey porches, and they were continuous buildings from the Cameron post office over there all the way down to the depot on both sides. Cameron's had 3 fires, and the only thing that has survived is this building right behind you, that hotel. And the only reason it survived, we had a flue pipe in the McKeithen store that caught on fire, and all of the buildings were attached by these kind of like platforms and porches, and they had to pull them off of this old Greenwood Inn building to save it from being burned. But back then, like Carthage and Cameron were always competitive, and Cameron had the booming trade, so firebugs would be sent down here, arsonists, to burn out the competition, and Cameron would send arsonists to Carthage and burn out the competition. And other towns were involved in this too. Sanford was involved in some of these things. We also lost our courthouse by fire, September the 5th of 1889, about 3:30 in the morning. And after it burned, Cameron even put in a bid to rebuild a courthouse down here, since it was so influential and it wanted to show its prominence. And back then, what is now 3/4 of Lee and all of Moore was all one big old Moore County. So they saw this as centrally located. They never knew that Lee was going to be formed in 1907 and take that part away. But Cameron would have been pretty halfway point between Broadway and Robbins, or Aberdeen and Carter's Mill, Robbins of today type thing.